This program has been made possible in part by the following sponsors. The Trial Lawyers Association of BC. The Vancouver Courier newspaper. My new book about addictions, All the Way Home, Building Recovery That Works. Life seems to have changed just a tad in the last couple of hundred years, you think? Well, let's see. People were making babies when they were like 13 or 14, and you're dying of an impacted wisdom tooth about the same age. And many women were dying in childbirth, as they still are in many unfortunate places in the world. And men, well, they were getting run through or hacked to death with broadswords at various crusades. So yes, life has changed a little bit. The agrarian society, the Industrial Revolution, and now the electronic revolution, which has all of us with sore thumbs. Question remains then, in this modern world, how do we live? How do we stay healthy? We've got the right person with the right answer. Katharine Ford has been running The Fitness Table, a unique exercise place for the last several years, and doing very well, and I think helping lots of people.
It's been quite successful.
And I should say, as a matter of disclosure, folks, that Katharine had the misfortune a few years ago also to be my swimming coach. And as I used to say to her quite regularly,
Gargle, gargle.
Gargle, yeah. Okay, so what is different? You know, the world is different. We can't really have the same bodies. Maybe we can have better bodies.
Well, I think that the implications of the way that people are living now reinforce poor posture because we're so sedentary.
Yes.
We're working and living a lot of the time sitting down or remaining in the same position for an extended period of time, and I think that that has huge implications on the strength of the spine and the strength of the entire body, for that matter. I think historically, I mean, I'm not a historian, and I'm not a sociologist, but I think historically people were more prone to being active. If we were farmers and gatherers, right, there was more tendency to be in the body and moving and keeping strong, and that just isn't the case, at least in urban societies.
I was sitting having coffee somewhere, as usual, the other day, and a friend saw me and popped in, and he said, oh, it's one of the rare times that I've taken a few minutes to leave the office. And I said, how can you do that to yourself? Why don't you leave the office every day for at least 30 minutes? How can you stay in that stale environment?
Yeah, well, and I see that a lot of the time too, and
yes.
that people are focused on working so much that their days get consumed by being at the office, and then they end up being exhausted and they go home and they don't do a lot of moving. And even for people who were fit in the past and then they get into the workforce,
yes.
and then they end up getting these office jobs,
yes.
they end up sitting for prolonged periods of time, and clients will say to me, it'll be 4 hours, and all of a sudden I look at the clock and the 4 hours have gone by and I haven't moved.
Yeah.
And it becomes really problematic for people.
It's interesting as you say that, I find myself thinking about actors and athletes, you know, because here are a category, now they're a relatively small category, how many elite athletes are there in the world compared to the rest of the population, but here are people who live entirely physically.
Yeah.
They're constantly pushing the edge for themselves.
Yeah, and those people have, I mean, they have a different level of stress, a different type of stress on their body. They have to kind of go, it's a pendulum, right?
Yes.
What we want to find is somewhere in the middle. So for people who are really sedentary, they need to move more. And I think for some athletes, at least a lot of the athletes that I've worked with and and continue to work with, they need to bring their body to a center neutral place and calm their bodies down, which has to do, of course, with their nervous systems as well. But
Calm, I think, is one of the biggest issues because, I work in addictions and I find myself over and over and over again saying to clients, slow down, you move too fast, Yeah. Because people are dashing about, whether, dashing for a bottle or dashing for a needle, but they're dashing to get to the stock exchange.
Well, and I think it's partly because they don't necessarily have a sense of where their center is. So they're always outside of themselves, trying to find something to ground their bodies and to bring them back into their center. And they don't have the tool and the understanding or the physical awareness that actually exists inside the body.
Yeah, what do you mean? Because I think what you said is just so profound that we could do 2 hours about that statement.
Probably.
that people don't understand their own center. What do you mean when you talk about that?
Well, in the context that I work in, I'm talking about the spine.
Yes.
Like our physical center is the spine, and
Yes.
it's where our central nervous system comes off of. And if the spine is not strong, if the body is not connected into the spine, and if you don't have a sense of where your spine is in space, then it's really difficult for a person to live connected to that center because they don't have any context for where it is, and they also don't have any strength in it, likely, inside the spine. So you could look at the center as a metaphor, but it also is a very real, literal part of the body.
Touchable, tactile, findable,
Absolutely.
locatable.
Oh, yeah.
I was sitting right here in the outer offices of Shaw, the entranceway, the other day, and I was just sitting there doing nothing. I was waiting for someone, I think, and I was just sort of staring at the ceiling and looking out, and I noticed there was one spare tree out on the street.
Yeah.
And I thought, what a world we live in. I happen to live in an area that has lots of trees, thank goodness. But one spare tree in the downtown core. Right outside these windows, we have some more trees, thank goodness.
Yeah.
But what a world we live in. It's kind of an inhuman, unnatural world.
Well, there's a lot of concrete.
Yeah.
There's a lot of concrete, that's for sure.
What does concrete do to the spine, by the way?
Well,
That's different from walking on dirt.
it's true. I mean, people's feet as well. I mean, if the feet are binding and you can't feel your feet on the floor because there's so much tension into the foot, it has impact through the joints, right? Through the knees into the pelvis and all the way up through the joints of all the vertebrae in the spine. So you get rigidity.
There's a very horrifying moment very near the end of, I think it's season 2 of Boss. Kelsey Grammer is the mayor of Chicago, where his number one man who has betrayed him goes home to his apartment and is packing to leave. And we know what's going to happen because Boss has an assassin who works for him. And the man goes into the bathroom and you just hear this, and he walks out and there doesn't seem to be anything wrong with him except he looks stunned, a wonderful actor. And as he turns, you see a little spot of blood right at the base of his spine. And then when he sits down, you see the blood beginning to seep here. And so I've been thinking about this. Is that a good way to kill someone, to hit them in the spine?
I don't know.
but it's the spine, right?
Yeah.
The spine is so... If you're
It's integral, yeah.
If you're injured at the base of the spine,
well,
that's bad news.
What I thought was that this guy's probably paralyzed.
No, he's
or he's dead.
He's dead in the next few minutes. Wow.
Yeah.
So the spine is so significant.
Well, it connects right up into the brain.
Everything.
Yeah. So it's your center. It's everything. It's your center for movement.
Yes.
It's how your brain relays messages into the rest of your body.
Now, you began a lot of your working life first as a competitive swimmer.
Yeah.
And then I met you because you were a swimming teacher,
Yeah.
a wonderful swimming teacher. We had a wonderful time together. And a lot of your work, even in the pool, was about elongation, right?
Yeah, and length,
about stretching out, about making, if you're 6 feet, maybe you're actually 6'2",
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Well, I'll bring it back to the spine.
Please.
If there's compression into the spine, so we have vertebrae at each level, and then in between each of the vertebrae we have a disc. And if there's compression into the spine, you're going to be compressing onto those discs, which could impact all of the nerves that come off of the spine. And that's going to, if the nerve is impinged, you may get nerve referral pain in through the body.
Hello, sciatica.
Yeah, sciatica for sure.
Yeah.
And not only that, it's going to affect how the information is traveling from your brain into the rest of your body if it's compressing into the nerves, right? So you could have restricted range of motion, you could have restricted sensation. It depends on if there's nerve damage.
Do you know anybody in your personal life who doesn't have back problems? I mean, almost everyone I know.
I don't have back problems.
You're the only one. But almost everyone I know is always kvetching about their sore back.
Yeah, it's
seems
a huge
to be
problem. And I think that to take it back to what we first talked about, I think that has to do with the sedentary lifestyles that we have. I've had a number of clients that are big, strong, athletic men who get into the workforce. They sit at a computer for 8 to 10 hours a day, and they end up with herniated discs in their cervical spine. And that's pretty debilitating for folks. And they're young. They're not, I'm not talking about 60, 70, 80-year-olds. I'm talking about early 30s.
Wow.
And that's because when we're sitting for prolonged periods of time, the muscles are atrophying. And if you're out of your center of gravity, so if your center of gravity isn't positioned properly, you're going to be compromising.
And you even made a point with Susan, who was helping us get settled here at this table, that you, and with our floor director, that you wouldn't be leaning back against the chair, because that's not what you do.
No.
What is it that you do?
What you want to do is you want to find your sit bones, the little bony bits at the base of your bum, and find yourself on the edge of your chair, and then use your postural muscles to keep your back in alignment. Because if I'm back here sitting, sorry, I'm moving now.
That's okay.
If I'm back here sitting, then I automatically am going to be pulling my pelvis forward, and my postural muscles are not active anymore.
And you also lost the light, so come back.
Yeah, so I'll come back to where I was, into the light.
Yeah.
So when I'm sitting onto my sit bones, it allows me to get the postural muscles active. And that has to do with training and strength. Because for a lot of people to be asked to sit in this position, it would be very fatiguing.
And what is so interesting is it affects everything. If you sit properly, it affects everything in a positive way. Your mental outlook on the day, on what you're doing, on your work.
Yeah, what I say to a lot of my clients is that the work done at the fitness table will improve your quality of life. It isn't just about strengthening your spine, it's about making your life better.
So we're going to break in just 1 minute, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the fitness table, because it is a unique way of working. But in 1 minute, tell people, what should they be doing if they have sedentary jobs? What can they do at home? Should they just make a point of going for a walk every day, or do everything they can to get up and stretch? I mean, what should we do?
Drink a lot of water, so you have to get up and pee.
Very good, yes.
Come and learn how to breathe, because if the diaphragm is moving, then the rest of the body is going to be in a much better place.
I almost failed grade 8 health exam because I mistakenly read on the test, explain with the aid of a diaphragm how something takes place. And I sat there like this going, and all of my fellow students were writing because I misread it was a diagram. That's a true story. Okay. Catherine Ford, who is the owner and chief instructor at the Fitness Table, an unusual and wonderful place. We'll be back with her, and she'll explain in a moment what it is exactly that she does there. In the meantime, your opportunity to visit davidberner.com, send us your emails. We're delighted to hear from you, and a chance for the lovely people who support us here on this program to say hello. They're the folks who help bring this program to you here on Shaw Community Television, Cable 4. Back with you in just a minute. I'll just pull my shoulders back.
This program has been made possible in part by the following sponsors. The Trial Lawyers Association of BC. The Vancouver Courier newspaper.
My new book about addictions, All the Way Home, Building Recovery That Works. maybe our posture can be helped if we're dancers. Dancers must, I mean, you can see, I remember going into, I deliberately walked in, our guest, by the way, is Katharine Ford from the Fitness Table. I remember deliberately going to see the Prada store on Rodeo Drive.
Oh, yeah.
Because of the architecture. It was done by a famous architect, and I wanted to see what it looked like. It was fabulous. It was spectacular in its simplicity. Anyway. And then there's this lady. I'd like to stand up, but I didn't tell the guys to do, about what I was going to do with the camera. But she was standing like this with, selling women's high heels. And she was standing with her feet like this. And I went, oh, a ballerina. She said, how do you know? I said, position 1. Right? She's standing in position 1, right?
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. Describe the Fitness Table. What goes on there? It's a very different kind of exercise.
Yeah, the Fitness Table is a postural training program. So we work on a very, very simply designed table where you can anchor one part of your body and then displace your center of gravity. And in the displacement of your center of gravity, what happens is that the postural muscles have to activate. So we get used to working the anti-gravity muscles in the body, and that helps to strengthen the spine. And it doesn't just strengthen the spine, but it also strengthens the deep core musculature and the rest of the body.
I mean, I've taken the course at least once or twice. Yeah. For a practitioner, it's a very interesting experience because you think, how can I get exercise lying on a table? Oh, yeah. Or isn't this the perfect exercise for lazy me, right?
Oh, yeah.
And within minutes, there's no lazy.
No.
Within minutes, you are pushed to, just by lifting your foot or by doing the slightest thing, it's work. Well, it's serious work.
Yeah, and the reason that it's work is because in all of the different positions that we work in on the table, we are targeting the postural muscles. And for most people who haven't specifically trained this way, the postural muscles are very weak. The superficial muscles are often really strong, but the deep postural muscles that attach to each of the vertebrae are often quite weak. So if you're asked to sustain tone and elongation in those postural muscles for a prolonged period of time, it doesn't matter if you're moving or not, you're going to be fatiguing. You're going to get tired.
The session is, I can't remember, is it 50 minutes? 60?
It's an hour for people who are just coming into the program, maybe those who have injuries.
Yes.
And it's an hour and 15 minutes for people who aren't dealing with injuries.
Yeah, well, tell us about injuries, because in the classes I was in, I don't think there were people with injuries, or maybe I didn't notice them.
I work with all sorts of people who have herniated discs. I work with people who have osteoporosis, osteoarthritis. I get a lot of referrals from healthcare professionals who are working with people who have chronic injuries, and the chronic injuries are there because there's a poor movement pattern that's happening in their body. So the healthcare professional will refer the person to come take class at the Fitness Table because it's a movement re-education program. So you learn how to move better. You learn how to move differently, more economically, and in alignment.
One of the things that I've always liked about the way you work, this is a difficult kind of conversation for a moment, is that because I think it's a unique talent that you have, and I wonder about the people that now are working for you as you've expanded. You have great eyes and great touch. So you're one of these people, like my Tai Chi instructor years ago, you just automatically see what the body's doing. You see what David's doing, you can see where he's off center, and you just see it like that. It's perceptive right away.
Yeah,
right?
Thank you. Thank you. It is a skill that has been honed.
Yes.
And we have a lot, as a Fitness Table instructor, oops, sorry about the mic. As a Fitness Table instructor, you are heavily trained in anatomy and physiology. So when I look at a person, I have X-ray vision and I can see the muscular system and where it needs to activate. And so I see it, and then through
you've got that schematic in your mind.
And then through physical touch, I can help to activate those muscles. And that's a component that's extremely important, is that when you're doing movement re-education and activating these muscles that are very hard to find because they're so weak, you need the physical kinesthetic feedback for the person taking the class in order to activate the muscles. So the teacher-student relationship's important.
It's very important, as it always is in any subject.
Yeah.
And also, like a good yoga teacher, and they're not all good teachers, but I've had a good yoga teacher. You know how far a student should go without harming himself or herself, because we can push to satisfy the teacher's instructions and push, and then what did I just do?
No, it's definitely really important for the instructor to know where the boundaries are, where the limitations are.
When I've worked with you, you've got maybe 4 or 6 clients at once, all on these big funny tables, and I've seen you say to 2 people here, you do X. Now, David, you're a little stiffer, so you just do X minus 4, or you do Y, right?
Well, we have an intake process, an evaluation process that takes an hour to an hour and a half. So with every single person that comes into the program, I know exactly what I'm dealing with, what the limitations are, what the goals are, and I modify for every single person. And people say to me, I don't really believe that you can do that, but it happens in every one of the classes.
No, I believe. I believe. I've seen it. I have a funny question for you. Have you ever had the experience so far, you must have had this, where probably after class someone is in tears?
Yeah, after, yes, after and during. The thing is, the body, the muscles hold memory. And if you're changing a movement pattern, the movement pattern is there either because of some physical trauma or sometimes an emotional or psychological trauma. And so if you're undoing that movement pattern, there may be some emotional stuff that's tied into that, and that may come out. But it's just like an exhalation.
A guy, it's a long story, I'll make it very short, a guy who had gifted hands many years ago when I was in my 20s and did a sort of acupressure kind of thing that he invented, had me lie on the floor in my office one day. He said, "Oh, David, you're a wreck." I said, "I am," and I was like 27, you know.
Right.
And he started on my heels and started working up my legs, and by the time he got to the small of my back, just pressing, I was sobbing uncontrollably. It wasn't physical pain. It was a release of some emotional, damn, you know, I've been holding, I don't know what. I would never put it into words. It was just a release.
Yeah, and I think it's important to understand that emotional releases don't necessarily, I never make a big deal out of them because it's just a release.
It's just what
People
it is.
let stuff go and then you move on, and it manifests in different ways. Some people will cry, other people will laugh. It's really different depending on the individual and the kind of work that's going on.
So, talk about payoffs. We just have a few minutes left. What do you see? What are the great things that make you smile at the end of a day or a week or a month?
Me personally?
Yeah, with your clients.
Oh man, I get to see that their lives are better. I get to see that they have more strength, that they feel more centered, that they feel more connected, that they feel like they have more expanded life. And they are a lot of times some people who are in pain, that pain is alleviated. I mean, somebody who comes in with chronic pain and then that's let go, it's a tremendous freedom for them.
Huge.
Yeah, hugely rewarding as well.
Yeah,
So,
I walked into a place once several years ago with major sciatica.
Yeah.
I was a grown man. I was already in my 60s. I walked in crying. And she's like you. She's one of these people who just has a magic touch. And she did her thing. It's called the Bowen technique.
Oh, yeah.
Gone.
Yeah.
The next morning, I'm looking around the kitchen. Where's my pain? 3 days of excruciating pain. Gone.
Yeah, so to be able to help an individual like that and to guide them, and also to create a format for them to have some control over their lives, right? Like if they are given the tool to change, then they change, right? And so I'm just often giving them that tool, and then the change happens, and they feel better.
You have people saying, "I found myself walking differently."
Oh yeah, moving differently, swimming differently, cycling differently, running differently, playing differently, getting up and off the floor from playing with their kids differently. I mean, it changes people's lives.
Yeah, you find yourself when you do this kind of work. You find yourself, you just develop this sort of physical awareness.
Yeah.
And you almost can't allow yourself, in a sense, to be sloppy anymore.
Well, if
in a
you
way.
know something better, then why do it the other way, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, why be non-economical if you can be economical?
Yeah, exactly. How's the business going?
It's freaking awesome.
Is it?
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah, we're into our 5th year of business, and
Fifth?
I know.
Oh, what did I say
I know.
in the intro? 2 or
you
3
said,
years?
No, you said a while.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
really?
no, it's very busy. Things are.
Because I
growing
remember when
and-
you started this.
I know.
5 years.
Yeah, it's
good,
been 5 years.
Good for you. And
Thank
do you
you.
have some mad fantasy about taking on the next part of the world? You're going to expand?
Always.
Yeah.
Well, no, I don't know yet. I'm gonna. I want to make sure that the quality of the work is sustained. So
Fitness Table, www.fitnesstable.com.
Vancouver,
Fitness
Fitness Table Vancouver.
Oh, because there's somebody else does this
Because
business.
my teacher in Calgary
Yeah,
is
still
Fitness
doing
Table.
it,
Yeah.
but it's not your twin sister.
Not my twin sister. No, I touch people. She touches plants. She's a horticulturalist.
Yes, but she has her own business.
Yes,
Yes,
she
because
does.
you're so different from each other.
Yeah, David, exactly.
What's your last message to the world? 30 seconds.
Get moving, and lengthen,
Yeah, lengthen and sit up.
and sit up.
Yeah, yeah, good
Breathe.
for you. Yeah, look at
Yeah.
you look so great.
I'm happy.
Yeah.
You're great too.
Yeah. Thanks, Catherine. Catherine Ford. Okay, folks, next week, surprise! I think we're going to do some repeats because we're shutting down for the Christmas holiday season and so on. So I haven't picked what they are yet, but we've done some marvelous show. This, I think, is show number 103, if I'm not mistaken, which is amazing over the last couple of years. So we're very proud of it, and we're glad that you've been able to join us here on Shaw Community Television Cable 4. Good night.